Yeah, well, Taylor was like, "Hey, can we do it today?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then, yeah, it's late. She's been having a lot of problems getting scheduling going, but I gotta have a quote unquote business meeting tomorrow, so it all works out for me in the end, all things considered. But yeah, so you don't have to be here, but but the VOD will be up later on, obviously. But more or less, been a bit of a scheduling issue getting Taylor on here, but hopefully we finally get it done. Am I okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I'll live. Let's see, how's that fucking right claim going? Let's wait here for when they show up. Still in fucking escrow, really? Ugh. Dispute expired in 25 days. Joy. But yeah, it's almost 10 here, so probably keep this for under an hour, hour and a half, and I'm going to bed. Was doing read-throughs of Emily Braun's chapters through the day, so trying to get that done. What's funny is that due to me doing this, the final product will be different from the one you know, believe it or not. Which is, I think you guys should enjoy it, at least. You know, little tidbits, changing here and there. I'm inserting more text as it goes along, reworking sentences. I can really tell my early writing style versus my now writing style. Reading any good manga or books lately? I barely have time to read. To be honest with you, I was reading. Nope, there she is. All right, so 9 mil, and then podcast guest, and they should hop in here in a few minutes, I reckon. Maybe. They're in here. Just gotta get them in the right place. Bum, 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 doo, doo. But yeah, I mean, I actually listen to audiobooks. So when I'm going to bed, I pull on an audiobook, and I'm reading while I'm falling asleep. And right now, I've been chewing through the Nightside series from Simon R. Green, as well as the fuck me, what's it called? The werewolf series. Fuck me. Hold on. Iron Kiss. Let's see. Patricia Briggs's series, the Mercy Thompson series. I forget what the actual book title is called. It's just by Patricia Briggs. Yeah, so Mercy Thompson series, and it's basically a walker. So not like a skinwalker, but like it's a female Native American character who does like phase shit and hunts vampires and works with werewolves and that kind of bullshit. You know. Ad? Okay. That's right, we gotta try and like bounce through the ads. Forgot about that. Let's see, I should be able to pull up my manager. Should be no, not that one. Dashboard. There we go. Ad already? This early? Jesus. Ridiculous. Win an all expense paid trip to TwitchCon. Polite pass. To be around those fucking people. Gugh. Imagine. They say they're going to be here in a few minutes. They got it up and running. We'll see. How you guys been? I know it's late. I know Yeah, Lay's glad about it, to say the least. That's fine, Flash, and you know, we shouldn't need much moderation on this one. How do I translate? How do I translate? Can withstand being called virtual service installed by a customer for over 20 minutes in the resume speak? Dealing with hostile customers and finding solutions through a communal goal. That's what I think you could say. It's mostly gobbledygook, but you can definitely say it. I don't know if it did any good, but you can definitely say it. You're going to jinx it. Hey, Jude. Hey, there you are. Your mic is off, in case you're curious. Or muted, is the correct term, I guess.
Hello.
Ah, there you are. Did you by chance have a reactive image or not?
I don't know what that is.
So there's a Future Tech link. Actually, I might have it right here. Give me 1 second. They should pop it up. Let's see here. Guess 3. Ah, gotcha. I replaced myself. Damn it. Well, I got you up. Give me 1 more second here to fix what I did. There we go. But yeah, so it's a bit of a late stream, guys, and if you don't like that, you gotta deal with it, unfortunately. So how are you doing?
I'm good.
Good. So what's up with your current, like, you moving around a lot or what?
Is there background noise?
No, like as in like your time zone fiascos and all that.
I just have a really weird sleep schedule.
Ah, I see. All right, so chat. This is Taylor Lane Gaming. I heard of them through RPG Pundit, and I decided to bring them on and talk to them for a bit. So, for those in the chat who don't know about you, who you are, and all that, why don't you go ahead and tell me a bit about yourself, what you do?
Well, my name's Taylor. I, as is relevant to this, I guess the thing that I do is design, write, and publish OSR content. I try and make it as compatible as possible with as much as possible, so I just call it OSR content.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, for those who don't know, what is OSR?
Oh, geez, you're gonna make me define OSR
Well, give me
on
like
the internet?
like a rough overview of what OSR is versus the usual D&D 5e, or sorry, one D&D system. Like how are the two different? How does OSR work and everything else like that?
Well, if you okay, so oh god, I'm gonna start a flame war. So depending on who you ask, OSR either means old school Renaissance and old school revival.
Mm-hmm.
And which one you use somewhat indicates your opinion on a conflict within the scene over what it really means and what it should really be about.
I see.
But also can just mean nothing and just be.
You kind of cut out there. You said B and kind of went. I think they cut out. B. All right, Jack, give him a minute. Ah, there you are.
Yeah, sorry about that. Where did I cut out? What was I
Well,
saying?
you're pouring a drink and said B. That's about where you cut off.
Okay. The OSR started out as something of a reaction against 3E a little bit, and then got most of its energy as a reaction against 4E,
Mm-hmm.
because there were a number of people who didn't much like either, which is a whole other set of conversations.
Mm-hmm.
As a reaction against that, they used the OGL as a way to legally reprint older editions rule sets, and in the process clean them up, annotate them, summarize them, make them actually compatible with themselves. And these sorts of cleanups of 1E, 0E, and 2E are called retro clones.
I see. So it's kind of like I guess you could call it like an RPG grassroots reaction to 3 and 4E pretty much, and more or less expand it out to its own little thing. Like as far as I'm aware
Yes,
of, that is that GURPS and OSR aren't quite the same, correct? Or are they the same?
there is no connection.
No connection. Okay. So so its own little certain thing in that regard.
Yeah. So yes, post the retro clones, because different people. So the old rule sets have a wide enough breadth and variation that retro clones are not don't necessarily agree with each other in every single particular of the rules.
Hmm.
It resulted in people talking about what these retro clones actually meant, what the principles were behind them, and from this, people took these ideas that they had over
Mm-hmm.
what it all meant and used it to design new games from first principles. And people sometimes refer to these newer games as new OSR or OSR adjacent, or the old school Renaissance as opposed to the old school revival, or just call them OSR as well. And the newer games are things like Dungeon Crawl Classics, Into the Odd, um, Lion and Dragon, obviously, uh, from our mutual friend RPG Pundit,
Mm-hmm.
um, that sort of thing. Oh,
So,
World.
oh, sorry. You go ahead.
Just World's that number. I was finishing on that one.
Okay. But what would you say is the main draw between the main draw of OSR versus other systems? More of is like a low fantasy thing, where the simplicity of it, or the complexity of it. What's the main thing that draws folks, even you, towards OSR?
I'm sure that there's a thousand things for a thousand different people. For
Hmm.
me, I'll say that I like it because it's a very large design space of at least theoretically semi-compatible material,
I see.
which is really nice design for as a designer, because I can write this if I write an OSR system, as soon as I publish it, it suddenly has the past 50 years of content that already written for it to draw on. And if I write, I don't know, some sort of story game, suddenly if I wanted that to be a thing, I'd have to write every single fucking thing for it.
I see. So,
Um,
we say it's helpful for you in terms of game creation, like
yes.
because you create these games, you create games and mostly OSR games. Would you say that OSR gives you a boon in this game creation, so to speak?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Hmm.
I also like it in play because I like the sort of simplicity of it,
Hmm.
and I like you don't really have to describe a lot of what you're gonna play, because it's a known quantity. You're gonna play a game about morally gray protagonists who want to enrich themselves in a politically chaotic and disconnected medieval-esque world. Like it's I don't know. It's the classic we keep coming back to as gamers for a reason, I think.
I see. It's like familiar, and you can kind of get back into it, and there's not a lot of flash to it, so to speak. Like compared to like one D&D, which is mostly flash and pretty colors, OSR is more grounded in your opinion. Then,
I mean, yesterday I wrote a level up option for a fighter class where they get to do one-on-one combat with the abstract concept of a skill check. So,
sorry,
you know, I don't know if it's necessarily all grounded all the time. I deal with very gonzo fantasy, but in maybe sort of a meta sense, I'd say it's grounded.
Okay,
you know what the play is.
Okay, I got you. So on that on that knowledge scale of you being mostly an OSR and kind of like having your own sect of the cult you kind of stay into, because RPG games, especially TTRPG games, are more or less one giant religion with certain sects kind of put between them. So with you being on the OSR side of things, how do you feel about the direction where the new D&D is going? Like, do you see them actually fixing things or not fixing things? How do you see that going?
Honestly, I think it would.
In your opinion, of course.
I try not to pay too much attention to what Wizards of the Coast does, because the majority of people who are playing 5e right now will never play another RPG other than 5e. D&D and every other RPG are kind of just different hobbies. For all of the sound and fury between different sects of the non D&D RPG scene, for all of the story gamers and OSR players and we're all like arguing with each other about who's best. Someone who plays Apocalypse World is more likely, and nothing but Apocalypse World is more likely to play one of my games one day than someone who plays 5e and nothing but 5e. So like, I guess my answer to that question is I'm probably not gonna like 5.5e or 6e or whatever they're calling it, and I try not to care too much.
I got you. So you're more or less just kind of ignoring this other stuff and kind of staying in your own ballpark, so to speak.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because it seems like it's almost like the inverse, where I swear OSR and GURPS live rent-free in the minds of D&D 5e players. Like, you go on any the websites, it's like, oh, GURPS is OSR, and it's like they just can't let go of whatever the hell it is. But
I mean, I see a lot of the same from OSR people sometimes. I wouldn't, if OSR people that I follow on Twitter weren't talking about it, I wouldn't remember that 5e exists. I wouldn't know that there was a 1D&D.
So with OSR, you guys have all these books you guys go through. Like, I've seen quite a few of the OSR pantheon, so to speak. It's all these different kinds of books. How do you feel about D&D 5e or is it let's go on just one D&D now, where this is going to be constantly like basically updating it as it goes along? Like, how do you see that from the point of like an OSR player, where it's going to be one always consistent, I guess, edition, so to speak, that's going to be constantly updated and yada, yada, yada. But, like, no hard copies. I believe it's going to be all digital, so they say, which means that more or less you're never going to actually own the things, just because it will be just constant revolution of updates. How do you feel about that?
Well, I guess if you're making me have an opinion on it, I would say that it's bad and follows the same attempt to make everything a service where you own nothing.
Mm.
Uh, every other piece of entertainment has followed. For what it's worth, I do basically all of my gaming online.
Mm.
I don't know when the last time I held an in-person game was. I design my PDFs to be viewed on a computer screen. I lay them out in landscape because a computer monitor is not in portrait; it's in landscape.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I like using the internet for role playing, but at the same time, when you buy one of my PDFs, you own that PDF.
Yeah.
You
Well, I
cannot reach into your computer and change it.
yeah, but I do understand the whole like doing because your computer is convenient. You can sit there in your underwear and play an RPG game. You don't have to get dressed up, put on deodorant, get in your car, drive to wherever the hell you're going. There's no real stress when you do it from home. And while there is a an allure to like doing it in person, the classic D&D experience or classic RPG experience, it's far more convenient to be in your house doing it over the web. There's no fist fights going on or like what are they, the RPG horror stories going on in your house where like they steal your toilet paper or whatever the hell goes on. It's just a whole different experience, which is a
I've
sorry, go ahead.
oh god, yeah, I've had I'm just thinking about a guy that I knew years ago, and he came to this game that I ran at this game shop, and I I gave him so many lectures on the basic concept of showering.
See, I'm mostly primarily a war gamer, and thankfully the war games I play aren't like insinuated with the smelly, the smelly gamer we all know and distastefully love. But at the same time, over the web, you're kind of freed from that particular abrasiveness of of humanity. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, I don't have to smell them.
yeah. But you create games. You created how many games would you say?
Yes. Um, Most of what I've created is supplements for other people's games, but I do
Hmm.
have my one own home system called Dice Dream. I keep releasing new editions of it. I'm going to release the third edition of it soon. I'm basically running the third edition with my own home game,
Hmm.
which is this sort of Underdark focused campaign that's a lot of fun. Um,
Can you explain what Dice Dream is in terms of a game system?
yeah, so Dice Dream uh, is not okay. Dice Dream is about as far as you can get from D&D as written
Okay.
by
So a large
Gary
departure.
Gygax, while still being D&D.
Hmm.
By most definitions, it is D&D. You can run Keep on the Borderlands in it unmodified. I ran basically the whole thing is designed from the ground up to be able to be as compatible with as many modules from as many systems as possible.
I see.
Um, so uh, it like a in Dice Stream, you don't really have to worry about the stats of the monsters. A clear verbal description of a monster is equivalent to statting it out. Um, you don't really have to worry about the pluses and minuses that you would get to a thing. You just sort of as a group talk about what the situation is. Then it sort of uses a advantage and disadvantage system, not totally dissimilar from 5e's,
Hmm.
to sort of figure out how many dice you're rolling, and then from there it's fairly straightforward.
Hmm.
Um, Combat, because I find combat to take up too much of sessions.
It
I
can take a
made it so
while,
that
yeah.
yeah, so I redesigned combat from the ground up. Combat is I don't have you ever been in a fight?
Like me personally in real life, yeah.
would you characterize the experience as turn-based?
No, it's quite quick and brutal, to be honest with you. And it's
Yeah.
one of the things that I think people struggle with is how to make combat in RPGs as visceral and quick as possible. Because I know, like in D&D 5e and D&D 4e, a combat would take like 2 fucking hours because you're going turn by turn by turn by turn.
So what I came up stumbled upon as sort of the answer um, is that combat and dice stream at the beginning of every round of combat, um, uh, the players and the GM sort of have a discussion about what are all of the things that will give the player's side advantages in this combat, and what are all the things that'll give the enemy's side advantages in combat. And from that, within like a minute or two, fairly simple modifiers for each side's roll pop out, and then the players have a roll and the enemies have a roll, and then you consult the difference between them on a chart, and this tells you what actually concretely this chart tells you what actually concretely happened. Um, and because of this chart, there's no such thing as like a round where all that happens is you do damage to them and they do damage to you. If the chart can make them flee, it can make them die, it can give you permanent injuries, it can kill your hirelings, it can destroy your equipment. Something is always happening every round of combat, and rounds of combat take maybe 5 minutes to resolve at most if everyone's being slow. And I like this a lot because I think the point of OSR games is not the combat. The point of OSR games is everything where you plan before the combat, or you try and travel to the combat. I just in my ongoing home game, I had the players spend 2 sessions getting to a monster, 10 minutes killing the monster, and then another session figuring out a way to walk the very large monster's corpse back to a friendly market so that they can sell it for money.
I see. So, and I believe your system runs off the 3d6 system, correct? You have 3d6 and more or less, there's no d20 stuff going on. It's mostly just 3d6.
No, there's D20s.
Was it 20? So,
Yeah.
I'm saying that sounded like a 3d6 system for a minute. Of the
3D6
of the 3d6 not 3d6 of the dice systems, what's your preferable system? The 3d6, 4d6, the 2d10, the d20. Which one do you think is in your opinion, your most favorite? Because I love a good old fashioned d20 because I'm a classic kind of guy. I like having that big old thunky dice. But I know guys who live and die by d100 for God's sake. So like, what in your opinion, as a game designer and builder, is the better kind of dice system? Because there's a lot of talk about the quote unquote best dice system, and no one can agree on anything on that particular topic. So I have curiosity.
The idea of categorizing tabletop role-playing systems by dice confuses me. Can you... Why would you do that?
What do you mean?
Like, why would you... So, like, the idea of, like, categorizing tabletop systems by, like, design school or, like, what other systems they're related to, that makes sense to me. But, like, I could probably, if someone, I don't know, made me do that, I could probably very easily redesign Dice Stream to use any number of other dice.
No. So what I'm asking is like, of the games you've played and the games you've made, or mostly just the games you've played, what was always a dice system you always look forward to using the dice system you don't look forward to using? Like, do you like D100s? Do you prefer a simple D20, 2D10? Like, what was your preferred dice system to use for RP, like role playing and combat and that kind of thing?
It depends on what they're doing. I find the I'm sorry, I find the question confusing.
It's fine. Because I know, like, a lot of folks, they live and die by the 3d6 system or the 5d6 system, and some people abhor the d20 because it's too random or too punishing and that kind of thing. Where on some systems like D&D 5e, and I think GURPS to some degree, where it's up to the GM or DM to kind of like use this to make the system more usable in general. And I swear, like, the more folks I ask, the more there's always some guys saying, like, if you don't use 3d6 or 4d6, you're not playing the game right, or some damn thing. And then there's like Star Wars, where they have their own special dice in general. You know what I mean?
Oh, the Fantasy Flight Star Wars?
Yeah. Like there's like there's like the Fate dice, where that's the only dice you can use for that game, and no other game's going to use that dice. Yeah, I think it's kind of curious how, you know, all of these systems can't agree on a single dice system. They always try and break it up or make it different. You know what I mean? Like, making my system, people were trying to argue for all these different systems, and I was like, you know, I like to do the old-fashioned 1d4, d6, d8, d10, d20, and all that fun stuff. So I was kind of curious on what your preferred system was, just off the top of your head, like which one you prefer to use or prefer to work off of.
I don't have a preference. It depends on what they're being used for.
I see. So what do you think of games that use a unique, like the Star Wars from Fantasy Flight, their own particular set of dice? Do you find it kind of like annoying because you can't use those dice for anything else, or you think it's kind of like a way to kind of make a game unique?
I think it's a way to make it so that as soon as play aids for your game stop being supported, your game becomes unplayable for everyone who might possibly get their hands on the rules.
So
like, I think it's mostly bad.
Yeah, so mostly bad. Yeah. See, I'm kind of the same court, having these special dice, because once, you know, if you lose one of those dice, you gotta order that particular dice back, or if, like you said, your game becomes obsolete, and you have these dice you can't use for anything else, or if it changes, you gotta buy a whole new dice set. It seems like I get what they're trying to do, like make their game unique and function differently from all the other games out there, but it seems kind of a horrible idea. And I've seen, I've seen quite a few games like try and playing the same kind of court. Like, I think the ones that come to mind the most are like RuneQuest and like Call of Cthulhu, where they use, I believe it's basically so they use a 2d10 where it's all percentile. Like, I could never wrap my head around percentile dice. Like, oh yeah, you have an 87% chance of success. Like, how the hell do I make? How I narrate an 86% chance of success in a game? I could never get my mind around that. But a lot of folks like it, so I mean, I don't know.
It's hard to narrate an 86% chance of success.
To me, yeah, because my brain doesn't work that way. But I think it's why a lot of times you go and find the game that works for you. Like, my small brain can go 13. Okay. You know, kind of worked off that a little bit better than 87%. And I like slammed to a wall almost immediately.
I mean, when I'm GMing, I sort of hate it when there's... So, again, this sort of... Where is the 86% chance coming from? Because if the 86% chance is fixed due to your skill, then... you're not really having to narrate it's an 86% chance of success. You're having to narrate a person who is 86% good at something, doing a task.
Yeah.
That's the thing sometimes, and other times the GM is just arbitrarily saying, I don't know, 86% chance. You have an 86% chance to
do the
jump
thing.
The chasm, and yeah. I don't know. In my own home system, not to plug myself too much.
Dude, you're fine. Don't worry.
I made things work so that most of the time when you're rolling dice for success, it's an ability check. Ability checks are always roll a certain number of d20s. Every d20 that's less than or equal to your ability score and equal to or greater than your exhaustion is a success. If you have you at the table, you sort of narrate out what all of your sources of advantage or disadvantage are. Like, I don't know, you're trying to leap the chasm, but someone's stabbing you as you're leaping, that's a disadvantage. And I don't know, you have magical chasm leaping boots, that's an advantage. And you count up your advantages and your disadvantages, and advantages and disadvantages cancel out. If you're left with extra advantages, you roll 2 plus the number of advantages dice at d20s, and you if you and you get to count all your successes. And if you have 1, you're part of the way to being done, and if you have 2 or more, you're all the way done with the task. And if you have more disadvantages than advantages, you roll 2 plus the number of advantages dice, and you ignore a number of successes equal to the number of disadvantages you had, so it becomes harder. But again, I mean, that's just my own home system, because as a GM, I'm sort of obsessed with the idea of whether or not I'm playing fair. And I want like, the thing I like about the whole advantage and disadvantage system is it makes everyone suddenly stop for just like 30 seconds and all together narrate what's actually happening in the scene, which avoids the sort of thing where you find out that your players were on a totally different had a totally different idea of what the scene was than you did. It sort of has this built-in check-in thing, and it lets players really figure out exactly what the DC is going to be.
So it's more of a cooperative gaming kind of thing, not just the GM being the judge, jury, and executor kind of situation.
Sure, you could term it as cooperative. I definitely think that role-playing is a cooperative activity, so yeah.
Have you heard of the, it says, as out of the blue, have you heard about, what was it called, Caltrop Core, where they use only D4s?
The person who made that has me blocked on Twitter.
What? Why?
Let me look them up and I'll see if I can remember. Twitter is a minefield.
I've realized.
Shit. There's a few people who Titanomachy RPG. They have me blocked on Twitter because one of their friends decided they didn't like me and that I was a fascist because. No, these people didn't decide I was a fascist at the time. They just decided that I was problematic. Just sort of vaguely problematic in some undefined way, and it's not done to really ask details. And the real thing was, I think that I managed to get more Twitter followers than a friend of theirs.
I just looked them up, and I've looked at their Twitter bio. Yeah, I can see why they probably block you. There's a lot of warning flags on this fucking profile. So I understand what's going on here.
What is even their profile?
Basically pronouns, all cops are bastards, no turf/swerve. So it's already a minefield in this fucking profile layout.
I use they them pronouns. I don't know if you knew that, but I do.
Oh, I know. But the thing is, like, on yours you say, like, comparing, like, just for sake of like how I navigate Twitter, especially when I'm trying to talk to people and bring them on the show.
Yeah.
It, like, on their profile, it's just this litany of fucking word salad, and yours is just writes and publishes OSR compatible content, full stop. I'm like, nice. It's
really all that people need to know about me.
I know, right? And like theirs is just this word salad poster board of attaboys and back patting, which, yeah, I can see how you two wouldn't get along. But still, like the quote unquote Caltrop core, that's not a lot of numbers to use. That's more or less a coin flip at this point. You know, you either succeed or you kind of don't or you do. It's not a lot of
How do their rules even work? Like, do you necessarily only roll one? Okay. Oh, right. I'm on their itch page. I'm looking at it. I like to give people. I like to get the full truth of things because I've seen. God, so many people in the RPG space just do not care about truth. They
Yeah.
care about cause or looking good in front of their friends or whatever. And it just makes me feel tired. I think the truth matters.
makes me feel tired. I can relate to that. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the core of the system using D4s. It all fits on one page, so keep this handy while designing for it. For a stat-driven game, simply assign a number between 1 and 3 to each stat. When that stat comes into play, roll that many D4s. Take the highest roll. For a token-based game, players can gain and expend tokens, rolling as many D4s as tokens they expend. Take the highest roll. Tip, only roll dice, and the statement can be phrased as an I want to statement. D4 result. 1, absolute failure, you don't get what you want and things get a lot worse. 2, partial failure, you don't get what you want. 3, partial success, you get what you want and things get complicated. 4, absolute success, you get what you want and more.
That seems so swingy. Like it's just there's not a lot of room for like you kind of do it. You kind of there's not a lot of like leniency towards storytelling. It's either fail, succeed, or you kind of success, or you kind of fail. It's not a lot of wiggle room. But I guess like for damage, you're like, oh yeah, you roll 30d4, you're just fucking throwing a ninja caltrop bag out there trying to damage something. But this is what I mean by like these like, do you think it's hard trying to break the mold of dice systems? Like I want to try and be unique. Like, is there a point where you're too unique, or a point where you're just not unique enough? Like, a lot of systems stick with the good old D20 subset of dice. But do you think like, because I know like a lot of games they're starting to use like card decks now. Like there's a war game called Malifaux, which you don't use dice, you use a deck of cards to do your your turns and your attacks and all that. And some games are using cards like oh, what was the one? I know this system's called Carta or Carta Gaming or something like that. And basically, when it's your turn, you want to do an action, you flip a card over off your deck, and that kind of determines how well it goes. Like, I have an opinion about it, but like, do you think you can be too unique making the system and kind of like pigeon and kind of it's where you're so out there that you won't get a real big playable fan base, or do you think it's more something that people should always push the boundaries?
So I'm going to take the boringly centrist position on this one, which is that tradition for tradition's sake and innovation for innovation's sake are equally bad. If the conventional whatever dice system, whatever you think of as conventional, isn't working for you, then for whatever your game is about and for whatever your game is for, then you should do something else. And if it is working for you, then you should stick with it. I think that there can be people other. However, I will say that, well, tradition for tradition's sake and innovation for innovation's sake are both equally bad. I see more people do tradition for tradition's sake than I ever see do innovation for innovation's sake. Because tradition for tradition's sake is easy. You just stick with the default. And all of the innovations come from people who do innovative things, whether they do it for good reasons or bad reasons. And I really feel like RPGs have, to a certain degree, stopped being that innovative. Or at least the RPGs that I work with have stopped being that innovative. Because I feel like most of the people doing innovation are people who are doing innovation just for the sake of innovation. And innovation for the sake of innovation is usually bad. It's usually, I don't know. Okay, I feel bad shitting on Titanomachi's game, largely because there's no way that I can be objective about it because I have this personal beef with them.
Yeah. You see, things like that, I love getting shit on because it is the quickest way to fix your stuff when people shit on you. Like, look at this fucking thing. Like, oh, they're right. And you can fix it. Like, I think being shit on is far more helpful than people blowing smoke up your ass. You know what I mean? Like, look at this fucking stupid system. Like, look at all these things wrong with it. Oh, there are a lot of things wrong with it. You fix those things. You know. But that's just how I am. I can see that not a lot of folks like getting shit on as much as I would. But that's how I learned.
I will disagree largely because being shit on by people who've decided that you're like a threat to their social standing because you have 2 more Twitter followers than you.
Well, that's not the same thing. That's not constructive shitting. That's just petty shitting. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I love constructive criticism.
Yeah.
My favorite, I will show my designs to people before I really try and play test them just to get feedback. And there's some people who will just say, it's good, you're great, you're a genius, Taylor. And that feels cool, that's nice. I like those people. Obviously, I have an ego, everyone has an ego. But the real productive shit comes from people who say, hey, your rules make no sense, and here's why with page references. You know?
So,
like people who are just like, this is... I get what you're doing, and you did it poorly. Do it better.
Yeah. Here's how. Like, oh, thanks. So, would you say that a lot? Because RPG creation is not exactly like a second. Everyone does it. Do you think it's like you mentioned this, like the ego thing? Do you think some folks are just kind of just mostly for the ego? Like
yes, absolutely.
So why do you think that is? Like, is it just like a I made a game kind of mentality, and they think like they're holier than thou, or because I know like money. Okay.
That's the short answer. The long answer is a bit more complicated, but basically, making an RPG doesn't really make any money. One of the most successful people that I know of, that I actually regularly talk to in RPGs, is RPG Pundit, who, you know, bless his heart, but I happen to know that he's put in an immense amount of effort over a decade to make an amount that's equal to the starting wage of a McDonald's associate in America.
The labor of love mentality, I think, the biggest thing about it. I mean,
it's easier for him because he lives in Uruguay, so that's a pretty decent, you know, wage there. He's not going to starve. But you don't make RPGs because you are in it for the money.
Well, you shouldn't be in there for the money.
Well, you can't be. There's just no money to be had. Like, if you're very, very lucky and work very, very hard in RPGs, you can do them full time and make below minimum wage. That's like I've talked to RPG creators, and like they're like, oh yeah, it was on my 5th year that I finally managed to make minimum wage. That was a big day for me. I was like, oh my god. You know,
oh my god.
The people who do this, are people who are too obsessed with it to do anything else, or people who are so weird and dysfunctional that they can't hold down a long-term job.
I see.
The people who do RPGs full time are people who just personality-wise either can't do anything else because they're genuinely just too inspired and too in it for the art, or can't do anything else because they just can't function in society, or sometimes both.
I see.
And that leads to very dysfunctional people who are constantly declaring fatwas on each other and you know, spreading insane rumors about each other to the point where I don't even know what's true anymore.
I see. Yeah.
I heard that Gary Gygax's son is like his new game has a race in it that's just a race.
Yeah. The
I don't even know if that's true. I think it's true.
well,
I don't really know because I've seen just insane lies.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know who to believe.
I've seen the screenshots of what they're saying it is, but it's so you're talking about like the Nordic race and the Groid race, we'll say it that way, and where it's so blatant and on the nose. It's like it to me, it's like, is this some kind of like blatant troll? Like it seems too on the nose.
Apparently, what they have, there's apparently court documents that I can look through, and I will look through them later. Where if you look on page 45 to 65, something like that, 47 to 67, you can actually see their rules and see for yourself. And that's court filings. So if that's not true, Wizards of the Coast is going to be in some fairly serious trouble. But I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't really understand what I'm talking about. But apparently their company also used an ongoing natural disaster that had killed people in Brazil to promote their game, and made tweets about how it was important to protect kids from the rainbow. I don't know, just a lot of tasteless shit.
Yeah.
That apparently they did definitely do.
Well, that's just people for you. Like, it's like you can't stop them.
I guess my point is that, like, everyone in the RPG space is just sort of in that position where if you're stuck in this, it's because you're kind of you're not gonna be able to, I don't know what the term is, perform capitalism that well.
Perform capitalism.
Yeah. Like,
you there, do a capitalism. Ah, fuck. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. Like go to a job and make a moderate amount of money, and like it's you're probably not that kind of person if you're doing RPGs full time. So that's who gets to dominate the space.
Well, it seems more and more like it's more or less these people drawing lines in the sand and all kind of fighting for their own side, because you know you may or may not know what /TG is, but I get like the bit on Twitter, and I go on TG and I kind of comb through this stuff, and I start like comparing things up and down, you know, pushing past the orc waifu threads, obviously, but you know I get a lot of news and opinions back and forth, and it seems more and more like there's a very very small pie, because you know. I write books. I didn't get into making an RPG until the fans asked, but it seems more and more like it's a very small pie that all the RPG game creators are trying to get a slice out of. And instead of like accepting what slice of pie you get, other folks want to try and stab the other guy for their slice of pie, and then kind of war over these pies. Like, I was kind of like, what the fuck is going on here? Because I figured there's a lot more like cohesion in the RPG creator group, and then I realized, oh, it's the exact fucking opposite. How neat. You know?
It's people who desperate people. It's people who are desperate to like maybe get enough of an audience where they can pursue their dream of doing the thing that they're obsessed with, and not starving to death.
Well, like I was talking with actually T-shirt and Iron and RPG Pundit about merit, and it seems like instead of making their games, you know, worthy of merit, they simply attack others and drag them down below them, so their game becomes more desirable due to being less problematic. You know what I mean? And I don't like that. It's weird how it's kind of that way, where, you know, instead of like making your game really, really good and showing, hey, here's how popular my game is, and saying, hey, look how full of merit it is, it's more of a attack that guy, make them look bad, so our game looks better. It got tiresome quick. Just going through y'all's Twitter, like, what the fuck is going on here? Because
that's absolutely a thing on the left.
You can't say
left
that.
Yeah. Never. What are they gonna do? Cancel me again?
Again, yeah. Well, the fear of cancellation is like, okay, but I make my own shit. Like, go ahead, cancel me. What are you gonna do?
I mean, it was really traumatic. Like the first time it happened,
Hmm.
and it was pretty upsetting the second time, and I still didn't love it the third time. And then by the fifth time, I was like, "Oh, that's annoying. I don't like it that they're lying about me."
Well, you would think they'd be a bit more like, you know, due to your what's the correct word for this? I don't want to say lifestyle, but like how you're living. I think they'd be a lot more, you know,
Gender?
no, not genders. It's a whole the way you live, the what you do, and you know who you are. They'd be a bit more lenient, but apparently they just like they went after you a bit harder. But you didn't want to talk about that in the first place. We'll go through something else.
Um,
What?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say that I think the term you're looking for is. Have you heard the terms blue tribe and red tribe?
Yeah, the political tribes of blue tribe bad, red tribe good. Don't look at yellow tribe; they don't actually exist. All that fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely blue tribe. You know, I was raised in a mid-range American city.
Hmm.
You know, you know, I don't want to get too much into it, but yeah,
Yeah.
like it's yeah, I'm I that just sort of makes them feel more like they can maybe control me.
Hmm.
Um, and it's frustrating for them when they can't. I mean, that's the thing about tribes is, uh,
The
you know, people.
ostracization that goes on, where if you don't fit the mold, they shove you at the tribe and they demonize you. I mean, I got a lot of guys on here who are not white. I'll put it that way, and they are
Yeah, sure.
like the demonization they get makes us all laugh. Like I got a podcast coming up I got a podcast coming up where I told them, hey, bring like your best awful jokes because you know, on that podcast or that part of the podcast, we believe in humor and how humor brings you together. We're discussing like the attack on humor, like the attacks on Bill Burr and Dave Chappelle and all that. And, you know how you know like even then like humor and even D&D and RPG shouldn't be tribed, but they are being tribed. And they're being tribed forcefully, and that's not how it
Sure.
should be. And you know, and like just right now, like you know, you are being blocked by the 1d4 people. It's like, but why? And it's gotten so bad where I could pull up their profile. And went, oh, I see why, because you just know automatically what's going on.
Sure.
But
You know, for what it's worth, I wanna not let the right off the hook here totally
oh yeah,
because
for sure.
I think there's also people on the right who, to a lesser extent, are also saying, "Hey, you should buy my games. I have the same political affiliations as you,"
Well,
which is a
they're
different sort of dodge of merit.
their sell line is I am not woke is their main the main sales
Sure.
pitch for these games. But in my game, you're an elf shooting machine guns and doesn't care what the fuck you are because you're another
Yeah.
plane. But like
Yeah.
so you yeah so you created games, I created games, other
Yeah.
folks create games. All game creators have a thing they love and hate about creating games. So like me, I love writing lore. I hate creating items. Like I hate it to death because it involves like, okay, you know what? You guys want rope? Here's some rope. And they ask, well, how long's a rope? 100 feet. How much is it? Fucking 5 silver. How tough is it? I don't know, 10 HP. Like I hate doing that crunch. For
At the
you,
point where you're assigning at the point where you're assigning HP to your rope, you've already lost.
well, they're like, well, how many cuts can rope
Your brain's
resist? I was like, I don't know. But for you, what parts of creating games do you love and what parts do you hate? Like you're like, oh god, this part, like you know it's coming, and you're like, okay, I gotta get it done, gotta get through it. Like, what are those parts?
So I am first and foremost a mechanics person.
Oh.
Um, I have a creative partner that I've been working with for a while. We're going to be releasing some stuff soon, hopefully. We do tend to sort of get sidetracked and, you know, some big stuff we're working on. But he's sort of the lore guy.
Mm.
Um, and we're working on a thing. He calls it Mythic Oricon.
Mythic what?
It's a mispronunciation of Oregon. It's
Oh, okay,
basically,
gotcha.
uh, we would take the geography of the state of Oregon and later Washington, and we make it into a fantasy hex crawl that sort of just has its own mythology. You know how like Tolkien was sort of writing the Lord of the Rings to give England its own mythology.
Yes, yes.
It's like that. It's like that.
Hmm.
Similar thing. And I mean, the other day, the thing that I love most, the thing that I love more than it's good for me is making classes. I love making classes.
Oh, do you?
I do. I love just sort of sitting down and being like, I know some cool custom mechanics that could apply to this one kind of character. I'm gonna write a vampire races class. I did that. It's gonna come out at some
You,
at
you
some
say,
point.
hold on, you used to say a vampire's racist class or a vampire race
Whoa,
class?
no.
Okay.
A vampire. So race. Well, okay,
I heard a vampire racist. Like, what the? How the fuck? Like, how does that work?
Okay, I did not write a vampire racist. So you know the concept of racist class from like old D&D.
Oh, okay, then okay. So yeah,
Class is elf.
yeah. So I misheard completely, but like, that'd be a fun thing to do though. A vampire just hates everybody who's not a vampire.
I mean,
A
due to some I did joke the other day that someone who was writing a French Canadian athlete class should make their character have to save versus superiority complex to speak common.
see that's funny, and a lot of folks can't handle any even fucking a single ounce of humor. So,
I mean, I think no one's really afraid of like anti-French discrimination. I mean, someone probably maybe French people, but you know,
yeah, I got you.
there isn't like a history of enslaving French people, so I'm not like super worried about it.
Yet.
Yeah. If someone, yeah, I'll stop making jokes if there's serious French discrimination.
Yeah. So like
but,
so you're making classes then, and classes and races
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff, and the mechanics of things.
more classes than races.
Okay, gotcha.
Races are really hard.
You see, I enjoyed making classes. Like we have one class in the VRTT RPG that's called a performer, where it's a take on the bard, but it's more about distracting and assassinating people than really, seducing the dragon and becoming a fucking dragon mommy or a dragon daddy. And it was kind of fun, kind of breaking. Yeah, it's kind of fun because basically they have like bladed scarves and hidden knives and that kind of shit. And
Cool.
it was fun doing that. I enjoyed making the gambler, the performer. But then it goes back to the same, like, okay, now these guys need stuff to use, and I just cannot stand making items. I know some guys love making items and make these little amulets and all this other bullshit. I'm like, oh god, another ring. What's this one do? It gives you speed. Fuck it, So what?
Yeah, I hate items that give you numerical bonuses.
Yeah, +1.
a
Great.
magic item should do something insane, like it's a cloak, and if you lay it on the ground, it becomes a half-mile deep hole. I don't know what you're gonna use this for, but it's a half-mile deep hole you can carry around.
That is Looney Tunes as fuck right there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I guess you said about like numerical things, like how much math do you like in your RPG? Because I hated in D&D how everything's about adding, subtracting, to like just give me a plus or minus something. And it's why like in the game we made, I was like, you get it's either plus, minus, advantage, disadvantage. None of this stuff like, well, you have proficiency in this and a +3 for like it's just so much shit to keep track of. And I used to hate that aspect of just all these little fucking numericals you gotta keep track of that change back and forth. And it's like, I remember like, because there's like there's a formula for figuring out like, okay, what's your strength bonus? You gotta have your main number divided by whatever, add 2, divide by a Frenchman, whatever the hell it is. And you finally have your number instead of just, oh yeah, it's plus this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that in many cases, even addition is too much if you can avoid it. So, which is why I have sort of the advantage and disadvantage thing.
Mhm.
uh, there've been these studies that like different mathematical operations have different mental loads. Like addition is easier than subtraction, which is easier than multiplication, which is easier than division. But like I try to not to even have addition to subtraction. Like that's a big part of why I really love usage dice.
Usage dice.
Okay, so let's say you have, I don't know, torches or ammo or
Okay,
food, and you
gotcha,
want to keep track
gotcha.
of how many uses of it you have left.
Yeah,
Now,
okay, now I'm
you
tracking.
could just keep a tally of it, or you could say, I have D12 of this, and when I roll, and every time I use it, I'm going to roll that D12. And when I roll a 1, I'm going to have D10 of it. And it'll go all the way down to D4, and then past that, I have 1 dramatic use left.
Ah, I see. So it's more so just like no memory, no think, just roll dice. You know.
Yes,
I see,
exactly.
see why a lot of folks would like that particular part of that. Just having a, because you know my game has ammo. We basically have a little counter where more or less, if you're not playing the digital version, you have a dice where you just kind of count down. You can reload. You turn your dice back to the numerical. It's just keeping track of things. But like but so like, what other parts do you enjoy about creating a game? Like what the parts besides classes, like things you look forward to doing like but besides that, what are the other things that you look forward to?
I honestly, I love it all. I've just been obsessed. I obsessively tinker with every single part of a game. I will still be tinkering with a game long past the point where I should just sort of give up and say it's good, it's fine, it's publishable. Um, uh, but you also want to know what something I hate about game design?
Mhm.
I don't know. Fucking Twitter.
Well, it's more or less, 'cause it seems like it's kind of tied to Twitter nowadays, where I mean, it used to be you would just release your thing and it was done. You would get your fans, you would get your hate mail, your love mail, and call it a day. Now you have instant access to your detractors, which I guess some folks don't like or do like. Like me, I have a hate group. There's a guy in the chat named Grug Peace is Real. He's like my lead hater, and I'm in my own hate group. It's just like, because it's weird, but you got used to your detractors. But it seems more on Twitter. It's more like author versus author, just bitching at each other constantly about like the silliest shit. And I'm not used to it. Like I'm not used to that aspect yet. I don't.
So Twitter got a lot easier when I just started unfollowing anyone who did anything that made me like be annoyed.
Cringe.
Muting, yeah, just muting anyone who was in my mentions and was saying ridiculous shit.
Mhm.
Like I don't even block them because blocking them, like they'll just sort of take that as a whole thing. But if you just mute them, they can't tell.
Well, like you like,
That's
oh, they blocked me. I wonder why. You kind of go into it. Like
yeah,
blocking
but like
shows like a reason behind it. Like if you
yeah,
unfollow, it's like, oh, I just don't care about you. But if you block someone, it's like, I don't want to hear about you. And you're like, but why is that? You know what I mean?
yeah. The people I have people blocked on there, but it's because they like kept quote tweeting me or like sent me death threats or something, or like were just annoying in a way that a mute wasn't gonna fix.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you have someone blocked for long enough, they'll eventually just sort of forget about you.
So
Um,
sorry, it is Grug being Grug in chat. So do you think that this is gonna go away? Because I don't remember it being this bad back in the day. This kind of weird
no,
RPG author hate war that goes on.
no,
And
it's gonna continue.
really, you think so? Because
Yeah, no,
saying it wasn't that bad back in the past. It really was. It wasn't really as
like
cutthroat.
which
Like we'll say
which year?
like early 2000s per se.
Uh, yeah, that was a totally different structure of the internet.
Hmm.
That was when everyone. I mean, early 2000s was. I was
not even like 10 then, but like I don't know, like what year in the 2000s? Like, do you mean like 2003, 2004, like that?
More or less the birth of 4chan around that time, like 05, 06, 07, 08, that little span.
Yeah,
Because it was around that time where things started really, popping off internet-wise,
yeah. I mean, back then, it was this sort of transitionary period. I mean, I remember that more. I was on the internet more than I remember. It was sort of this transitionary period where like there were still all of these little tiny websites that had amazing shit on them.
Yeah.
Like that was Homestar Runner days, and I think a lot about how
Oh,
like,
yeah,
Homestar
yeah, yeah.
Runner now, it not only like wouldn't be as popular, it would have like 200 followers on YouTube, and that's all it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, and partially that's because there's a million other things that are Homestar Runner quality, and like there just weren't a lot of people who were like making stuff like that back then. But another part of it is just that the internet's really big now, and the internet is really concentrated onto like 5 websites that most people go to and most people hate. Um, like the internet is mostly just like for me functionally, 90% of the internet time that I have is like it's Reddit, it's Twitter, it's Discord, uh, and it didn't be like used to be like that. It didn't used to be that like there were
These
used to be that you
hubs,
could get away from people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could get away from people, and it's like I don't know how old you are, but I'm sure you remember uh, you know school. And I'm sure you remember, because you're a nerd, I'm gonna take a wild guess and imagine that you were bullied in high school or middle school or
But
elementary
believe it or
school.
not, I was actually one of the weird, like, the term is cringe as fuck, but like a Chad nerd where I did a lot of like lifting and football shit, but I still enjoyed me a good, D&D game. I was the outlier, not the inlier. I was completely different, and though there was still kind of bullying going on, like, oh, you're playing with those fucking nerds. I'm like, yeah, I'm playing with the nerds, but it was less stressful. Like after like a long week of football practice and everything else, you could go chill out. You can kind of put away the in another cringe term, alpha male mentality. You kind of set it aside and go, oh, I'm an elf today. Thank fuck. You kind of set it aside. But
I love that. I love that.
but it's weird how I guess it's kind of the inverse now, isn't it? Where I guess, well, well, not the inverse. It's more like everything's so blended now, I suppose. Where geek is chic nowadays.
I don't even know what the kids are doing these days. I don't know.
They got their Fortnites and their YouTubes,
Yeah, I don't know. My point though was just that like the reason why bullying happens in schools
Mm.
is because kids can't just leave. They're made to be there.
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah. So you're saying that basically with the internet you can't leave. You're always attached to the internet and you can't like escape it.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. Like there's the retreat of like any sort of real life organization. That's I mean, Bowling Alone was this. That book written in the '90s, Bowling Alone.
Yeah.
I mean, that problem's only gotten worse. But the internet's more and more concentrated. So structurally, like you can go to Twitter, you can go to Reddit, or I guess you can go to YouTube or Discord. But like, there's a limited number of places you can go, and you'll probably still run into the people who hate you and you hate, and so you just sort of you can't get a break from them. You can't get a break from yourself. You can't get a break from not to be overly dramatic, but society. I mean, it's everything's very in your face all the time.
Yeah. It was one of those things where it's more concentrated now in certain. There's these hubs, like people won't admit it, but Reddit's a hub, Facebook's a hub, Twitter and 4chan are hubs, and those are kind of the main 5 hubs, really. I mean, those are the big 5. Like, well, people don't want to acknowledge 4chan, but it's there, and it's where I mostly go all the time because it is kind of neutral. It's a weird neutral zone because Reddit is not neutral whatsoever, and neither is Twitter by a fucking long shot.
Yeah.
And what you think for you think for creators it'd be great being so concentrated because you can throw something out there and somewhere it'll catch. Like writing books, like I do, it was nice because you can throw a thing out there and you put it on one site, and it's going to get eyeballs, and you can slowly grow your community. At the same time, you grow your detractors 10 times as 10 times as fast. And you know,
another part of it is population. Like, what's your favorite YouTube channel other than yourself?
Probably shit. That's a good question. Hold on, YouTube, because I have my main search list. Because usually I'm on like either Neckbeardia or It's a Gundam.
What are those?
So Neckbeardia is a friend of mine. We do videos together about basically nerd shit, and then It's a Gundam is a kind of like a how do you explain It's a Gundam? He is a entertainment not VTuber, YouTuber where he critiques things from the eye line of a black dude who's also I think he was gay at one point or something, but it's kind of his viewpoint and how he takes things in. The guy's got like 701,000 subscribers and all that.
So here's the thing. So let's pen that number 700. 700. Let's call that 0.7. You said 700,000?
Yeah, 700,000.
Okay, so that's 0.7 million. So Shakespeare, let's say Shakespeare was so famous that everyone in England when he was alive knew who he was. That's not actually true, but let's say it's true.
Mm-hmm.
So Shakespeare, let's see, he was, I don't know, he was, he was alive in 1600. What was the population of England in 1600? Population of England in 1600 was 4.1 million.
Yeah.
So you have 4.1 million. If you had 4.1 million fans then, you were Shakespeare.
Yeah.
You were a world historical level storyteller and artist. You were the artist that other artists would compare themselves to for the rest of time.
A rock star, so to speak, of the Shakespearean times. Yeah.
Honestly, Rockstar doesn't begin to cover it because every rock star you can think of now won't be talked about in 500 years.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe.
Maybe.
It's hard to say who will stand the test of time. 99% of them will not. I can tell you that right now. But if you had 4.1 million subscribers on YouTube today, you would not be in the top 100 YouTube channels.
Is that right?
Yeah. If I remember correctly, you wouldn't even be in the top 1,000.
Really? I'd be damned. Just due to pure density of population, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. So like the 1,000th most popular YouTube channel today is some daily vlog channel from Pakistan called Hira Gold, and it has 9.9 million subscribers.
Jesus.
Yeah, and you've never heard of them.
Nope.
And I've never heard of them, and I won't think about them again after this conversation. Yeah, I mean, just density of population and just structure of the internet means that everyone is just in a single bowl, competing after a single group of subscribers and a single group of fans, and that's cutthroat.
And of course, the bowl changes sizes per group. And like my pie analogy, it's not a very large pie in terms of RPG room. And even then, like the big ones like Critical Role and all that, they have most of the fucking pie. So you have these creators like you and me and everyone else. Well, less me, more you, really. Let's be honest here. Just kind of slugging it out for the slice of the pie, and it would just be nice. It's a very ignorant thing to say, but it'd be nice if it was like at least a little bit less drama, at least. But it seems more and more. And if I go too hard on a subject, let me know, because you said you find the shit tiring. But it seems more and more like that the RPGs are getting like politicized constantly. It's like, it should be escapism. It should be a playful. It should be a playground in the middle of two war zones where you can go and get on the swings and get off and go back to your sign. But it's not anymore. And at the same time, these creators are warring with each other, using their clans as these battering rams to destroy each other. And it just seems so like unneeded, like all this unneeded drama going back and forth, and just kind of ruining the whole aspect of the escapism of a collaborative storytelling device such as tabletop RPGs.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's always been. I think it's. There's always been some amount of a degree of a political component to art. I mean, we were talking about Shakespeare. I mean, Shakespeare, a big part of why he's famous now is because he got hired by the English crown to, write some fluff pieces for them. A lot of his history plays were commissioned by the English crown, and he was like writing the histories of their ancestors. I mean, that's a non, like, that's political. It was definitely meant to be political at the time.
Well, I wouldn't really call that really as much as of the escapism as RPGs would be. I think there's been a bit of like an invasion of the RPG space, so to speak, where, especially like, both sides are guilty of this. I mean, look at this new TSR shit that is allegedly real, where they can't just be neutral. It's got to be the slant one way or the other, and there's no real like common space, so to speak. Like even the big one, Dungeons and Dragons, whatever edition or 1 D&D, they can't even escape this pull of all this dramatic bullshit. And you think at least the big one be the most applicable. Yeah, they common ground. But even they can't take 4 steps. And there's a Haddo Z thing and the orc thing, and this all these apologies and shit. And it makes you wonder, like, at this point, where is the game space going to go? Are folks going to abandon these big names and go towards smaller names, or just names and games with less drama behind them? And if so, what's the breaking point? People just going, fuck this, and abandoning the game and going to a new one? Because it kind of happened with 40K, but not for political, but just for price. People go, it's too fucking expensive. I'm not doing this shit anymore. And that's why Star Wars Legion bumped up in player count, and so did a lot of other games, because there's a fallout from this big name just getting burned out due to drama and price, everything else. And I see, I believe there's going to be a political aspect of people going to get burned out on all this, on all the dramatic bullshit, and go, I'm going to play something else. And at that point, like, what's the break point? What's the straw in the camel's back? The bridge too far for when things are going to just collapse. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think you're going to like my answer here.
Oh, it's fine.
But for the most part, there isn't one.
You think so?
D&D and every tabletop role-playing game that isn't D&D are separate hobbies.
You believe so?
Yes, absolutely. Most of the people, 90% of the people who play 5e will only ever play 5e. Probably more than 90% of them. I think when they've done numbers, it's 85%, but I think there's sampling errors from like who's even gonna look at like those kind of surveys, and like what the people who are answering that might think of as like them doing something other than D&D, because a lot of them are like, yeah, I play games other than D&D. I played Pathfinder one time, and I'm like, bro, that's D&D with extra steps. It's
Well, I mean that could be true for sure, but like you say no, and I actually say yes because people go find something else when they get tired of something, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's getting so ridiculous that the more I see it, the more I feel like people are gonna go, you know what, fuck this, I'm gonna go find something else, which may lead to an actual renaissance to the name of OSR. People going, you know what, this seems a lot less fucking. There's less drama here. I think, you know,
I mean, there's different drama.
different drama.
I wouldn't say less drama.
But, but you know what I mean though. Like, there's less apology letters, less scandals and all this other bullshit. There's less just blow ups and hang ups and all this other, because it seems like why log
Honestly,
on to
there's
RPG groups?
still a lot of scandals in the OSR. There's still a lot of weird blow-ups and hang-ups and all that stuff. It's just less publicized because it's some dude that it happened to, and not like um, a million billion dollar company, something like that. Probably million. I don't know how
Grug,
much. What is Wizards of the Coast valued at?
so Grug says rejecting the embrace Shadowrun. How do you feel about that?
Um, Shadowrun is a cool concept that has too many rules.
There's a lot of rule crunch in Shadowrun. I do agree, and a lot of it doesn't even work correctly. But I believe because Shadowrun is more or less cyberpunk D&D, in my opinion, to what they're kind of going for. Really, what goes beyond fantasy and taking it into the future and technology and all that kind of fun stuff. But
Well,
I
I mean, if we're talking about rules, Shadowrun is higher crunch than uh, than D&D. Any edition of D&D.
How hard do you think it is to find the balance between crunch and easy to use rules? Like how hard is it to hit that sweet spot, do you think?
I'm basically an extremist on minimalism. I'm a centrist on like a lot of fucking things. I'm an extremist on minimalism. Um, I think that like crunch has its place. There's a rule. If a rule is doing something that it needs to do to make the game work, it should be in there. Um, but like, I basically think that if a rule book for a game is more than 50 pages, the designer fucked up and they should go back and do it properly.
So so basically we're running a little over, but I want to get one more question to you before I finally set you free. Because you're probably tired as fuck. I know I am. But
Yeah.
what is the one game book where you hear the name and you get like the Vietnam flashback, choppers going overhead, like the one rule set where you go, oh my god, this fucking thing? Because I've played quite a few, and there are some rules that ripped the fun out of the game. And I know what mine are, but what are the ones that you play where you're like, what the fuck? It just ruined the entire time that you're playing it.
I have two. One is a game called Dream Askew. It's by
Dream Askew.
Yeah, it's the story game by Avery Alder, something like that. It's really just, it's sort of a game that just sort of is, the rules are sort of set up to create massive interpersonal conflict between the players. It's the only rule set that has ever I refuse to ever play it again, even as a joke.
That's that bad, huh?
I've played it twice, and the two times that I actually played it, I ended up crying in public both times.
Why?
It just creates like this situation where you and strangers are just screaming at each other. It's just
what?
It's
Oh, like,
okay, so you know how like arguably one of the points of like a rule set is to adjudicate conflicts in between participants, but one one player says I do this, the GM says no you don't, and the rules break the tie.
Okay, I see.
Dream Askew basically says, actually, you're both terrible people, and I'm gonna give you reasons to like get more and more heated in your arguments with each other. Like it's
That's a game. What the?
yeah, I don't know. It's just like I could go into like how the system like creates that as a thing, but like we don't have enough time. And the other one is of course GURPS, but like I've played enough GURPS that yes, I did run a transhuman space game where like it was famously just the game where every session has a screaming argument over how space works every 20 minutes.
See, the thing is, I gotta agree. I didn't like GURPS either, but it wasn't one of the worst. I think.
Yeah, GURPS never made me cry in public.
Yeah. Yet there's always time. Don't you worry.
Yeah. I've had fun where I just was like, hey, so today we're playing GURPS Rules as Written. You forgot to put points in the radio operation skill. You don't know what a radio is.
Oh, okay, one of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the GM where you would know what a fucking car is, but you might be the best at driving. But that's a whole other thing, I guess. I'll probably need to drag you and Pundit on one of these days to talk about like GMs and the shit they do. But that'd be like a scheduling nightmare. But it will be funny though.
We could both make it.
Yeah.
I'd be down for that.
See, like I don't like GURPS, but I remember I played one. It was called like The Quiet Time or like The Quiet Year, where
yeah, that's by the same person who wrote Dream Askew.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, because like this used like, I thought I'm gonna try a card deck game like Malifaux, and I just fucking hated it. Like it was just so unfun. Where like I remember like it was something where a deck of cards, like 54 of them or some shit, where it would correspond to a day or like a day. It was a time during the year.
Cards. You have 52 cards. There's 52 weeks in a year. Each
Okay.
Cards, right?
Yeah, it was something like that. And I remember, like, you did, if you wouldn't shuffle your shit right, you get like months of bad shit. Like, what the fuck, you could, and you couldn't really escape it. You're stuck in it.
Oh yeah.
And I hated that. Like, this game sucks. And that game probably turned me off all card deck based games forever. Like, I couldn't do it. And
I mean, there's a lot of other card deck based games. I think you shouldn't count them all out, but. Yeah, The Quiet Year is very much designed to be the story of how you and your friends all get together and world build a town and see the terrible, tragic things that happen to this small town. And at the end of the year, like it's implied that everyone dies, but you don't even get like the satisfaction of seeing that happen.
Yeah, but yeah. So like I didn't mind GURPS. I hated the fuck out of Pathfinder. Just for the fact, I just didn't like it. I don't like how it worked. And The Quiet Year made me want to fucking throw chairs at the gaming table. And then I have, my own gripes about, D&D. The fucking 2-action, bonus action system makes me want to fucking, foam at the mouth. But I think, like, of certain games, I'm sure, that were so bad, like, you kind of read them and went, yeah, I'm never playing this. My two favorite like cringe reads, like you read it like what the fuck is like you read it and you're like there's no way this is real, and they put all the work into it, and I'm sure the top two of Fatal, I'm sure that game system where you just read it and you go this is fucking stupid, like it's like a dive into some dude's psychosis where he's reading this fucking book like what the fuck is going on here.
Yeah.
And then have you ever heard of Rohawa?
The racist one?
Racial Holy War. Yeah.
I don't know what it is with racists making role-playing games about being racist.
It's like I guess it's they're like
misquoted about this, but like you can be racist in real life, man. If that's what you want to do with your time, you don't need to act. It doesn't have to like it should stay a fantasy if you have to do it at all. Like, don't be fucking racist. But like, why would you want to be racist in the game too?
Yeah.
I don't. You know?
Yeah, it's just like, because Fatal was funny. Racial Holy War was just sad. Like, you're just, oh, honey. Like, you're reading through it, and it's so try-hard, and it's so cringe. He's got to laugh while you're reading it.
Never read it.
If you want to, if you want to learn how, like, I read it to make it. I read it so I would know what not to do in my game while making it. Like, okay, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. It's a great demonstrator of how not to make a game.
Fatal or Rohawa?
Rohawa. Fatal was just funny. Like this is how fucked up you can be. Rohawa was like how to actually make sure how to never play a game this way or write these rules, or that, and they didn't even complete it. It's like partially completed, so
Other than being racist, what's wrong with it?
if I remember back, like, it had really bad attack rules, and like you would attack different races differently. And like sometimes you have depending on what white warrior you were, or I'm pretty sure it's called white warriors. You have certain bonuses against certain un-Aryan ideals. It was the weirdest fucking thing. It was basically like a paladin
Un-Aryan
homebrew.
ideals?
Yeah. So
Like, what's an un-Aryan ideal?
well, I can't remember though, because remember it was a first edition, and like you're playing it, you're like, what the like, you're kind of looking through it, and like how would I play this? I remember, actually, I think I have the way back link to it. Oh yeah, here you go. So I'll send it. So if you want it, I'll send it to you so you can.
I'm not gonna read it.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Seems like a total waste of my time.
It's just I'm trying to, let me see if I can find it real quick.
I'm big on giving people a chance and like not, and like trying to like see for myself. But like, the game's name is Racial Holy War. I don't.
Yeah, but basically you were holy white paladins doing dumb shit, and like you would attack different races differently. It was basically just like like a weird like mental schizo rambling trying to make a RPG game. But like those are mine. Like my favorite cringe RPGs. What are yours? Or if you do you even have any? Because a lot of folks say Hybrid for some reason. It's a 1990s game.
I've never heard of it. So like a lot of cringe shit. Like, honestly, there's a lot of cringe RPGs. If you like read a bunch of RPGs, a fair amount of them will be cringe.
Besides Dream Askew, I'm sure.
I mean, Dream Askew isn't even cringe.
It's just bad.
I mean, on the surface of it, like Dream Askew is about how a queer community reacts to the collapse of society, which is like not a terrible premise.
Mm-hmm.
There's something there. There's something there with like what does it mean when you were marginalized before society collapsed, and you had this community, and now society is collapsed. So what's the apocalypse look like for you? Are there good parts of it for you because you have this room to breathe? Who are you? What does it mean to like feel differently about gender and sexuality when like a lot of the strictures over that have collapsed? Like, there's something in that premise. I think it's probably better as a novel than a role-playing game. I don't know.
Weird question, I know. Like, but I know
I just tend to forget most of the cringe shit. Like I would say that 90% of RPGs are at least a little bit cringe.
You just gotta block it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just go past it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess. Oh, one final question before we head out. Do you prefer, for all the action systems? Do you like, what's your preferred action system you like the most? The 2-action system, the action point system, card system, reaction system. What's your preferred one? Just final question.
I'm
what games are each of those from?
So not really games, but like like D&D 5e has 2 actions and a bonus action or something like that, and Pathfinder has their action system. I think it's like 3 or 4 they have, and then like action point is where you have a pool of action points, and then actions have a action point cost. So say you want to like shoot a gun or shoot a bow, it would cost you 3 action points. You can do like a lot of shots, and all that fun stuff. Or somewhere where certain classes or races have a dice they roll that determines the amount of actions they have. I know a lot of folks prefer the simplicity, like, okay, you have 2 actions, like, okay, and I can plan out ahead. Or some like the randomness of the dice roll. Some prefer to have action point systems where you return action points via,
My own home game just doesn't have turn-based combat. I have a generic version of that can be applied to other D20 RPGs. It's a fairly simple system. You could use it with like a lot of shit. But because I don't like, my own experience of personally being in fights is that they're not fucking turn-based. I mean, have you ever been in a fist fight? Like, I don't know how many actions per turn I had in that,
So you say that your preferred system is none at all.
Yeah, none. If you're gonna make me choose one of the options that you gave me, probably like the multiple action point system per turn thing.
I see. Yeah.
That's probably better in a video game than a tabletop role playing game. I don't know. I just think that like the usual turn based combat that most games have is this terrible middle section where if combat's really that important, it should be really engaging and fun.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's really that not important, it should be over quickly. And you should choose one of those. Most combat is in the middle. So I guess the real answer is none, but if you're making me choose
no.
complicated one.
See, I'm not making you choose because what matters is your favorite one, and I guess some folks like you go none at all. Thank you. No, thank you, please. No, I'm good.
Yeah, because the interesting thing about combat is like all of the plans that you make before you get into the fight,
mm-hmm.
and all of the narration that you have of like what the fight's like.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just don't want to spend a fucking
2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
God, I mean, I've been there. Yeah, like fucking cool. I went over to this dude's house, and we played, and the entire thing was the intricacies of us killing some orcs that we slaughtered to the last person. I guess the last orc. Or orcs? Do orcs count as people?
Well, according to Twitter, yes. Orcs are people too, bro.
Yeah, orcs. We slaughtered them to the last orc, and they didn't significantly impact us, and won't affect the rest of the campaign. So I don't know why we spent 4 hours on this.
Understandable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was a fun talk, but I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, I remember some things you didn't want to talk about. I'm trying to like move around those, but I am glad you came on and talked. And this was a fruitful talk, I would say. I learned some things, and I learned what the hell that horrible game was, where you just yell at each other for 3 hours. Good, a thing to avoid. And
I think I left after only 2.
I wouldn't blame you after that. That would not be fun at all. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Chat, we'll see you. I'll probably see you Friday for the War Crime Boys game. Whole other shindig on that thing. But yeah, Taylor, thanks for coming on. Hopefully,
Friday for what?
Oh, so basically, I run 2 games per week for the game book that I made for the fans, and I have 2 parties. There's the Storm Riders, who play it more in a narrative fashion, and the War Crime Boys, who just the name says it all, really, at this point. But
you want me to come on for one of those?
Oh no. Well, saying if you want to, but that's up to you. No, I was letting chat know the next stream will be on Friday.
Oh,
yeah.
Turn to me. Okay.
Oh yeah, sorry. I should have pointed that out. But if you want to, I won't stop you. But it'll be you probably won't like it because the combats take forever. Yeah, I figured. But Taylor, thank you for coming on. If anything else pops up and I want to bring it back on, I'll let you know. We'll try and reschedule for that time. Yeah. So stay safe on Twitter and chat. We'll see you later. Good night.